Good morning, everyone, and happy Saturday. How's everyone doing this morning?
Woohoo! Good
Good
morning. Happy
morning.
Saturday.
Morning.
All right. Well, we are going to get right into it because we were just commenting in the preamble that, we were kind of off last week because we had an amazing kind of worldwide event, Walk and Talk, which was fantastic. But we had the week off of our Voices of Health Point, and so we've got a lot of docket items here. For those that aren't able to catch things live, you can catch the episodes uploaded onto Voices of Health Point. But let's get rolling here. We have the following docket items, which is how we like to start the program, and then we get into the lots of fun with just kind of a round robin style discussion. So I'm going to be covering a topic called understanding NRF2, the body's master switch. Then we're going to have Carol Zampa that is going to be talking about the upcoming session, kind of a cohort of September 22nd, and she's going to particularly focus on the development of mini lean teams, something that all of us can absolutely benefit from. And then Steve Bever has a docket item on the topic of resistant starch. We're all really intrigued about that. And then we've got the one and only Sharon Webb on the docket item called You Are the Answer. So let's buckle in and get going here. So I'm going to kick things off so I can get back to my moderating duties here. And that is, again, the topic is understanding NRF2, the body's master switch. And that is nuclear factor erythroid 2, nuclear factor erythroid 2. So in this narrative, I want to focus on one of the most powerful yet often overlooked systems in the human body, NRF2. This protein is a transcription factor, a master switch inside your cells that has the ability to turn on your body's own antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, and detoxification pathways. For those of us coaching or participating in Health Point, understanding NRF2 helps us see why the nutritional foundation of Neutralite products is so central to our program. To frame this, let's turn to Dr. Stu Men's teaching in Orange Dot Audio number 20. And for those that aren't familiar with that term, it's kind of an internal language. In the Health Point app, your daily audios have an orange dot next to them. So we reference them as orange dot numbers. So this is an Orange Dot Audio number 20, which is an audio titled XX, the best of nature, the best of science. In this talk, Dr. Men explains the reformulation of Neutralite's flagship supplement, XX, moving from phase 3 to phase 4. Here's how he put it, and I'll kind of paraphrase some things from that audio. Quote, in phase 3, we ended up with 22 concentrates, and a lot of them contained what we call exogenous antioxidants. These were primarily to influence oxidation from the outside. So if you were at risk for oxidative stress, this was meant to address that, unquote. This phase 3 then was about providing concentrated plant-based antioxidants, nutrients from outside the body that could help neutralize oxidative stress. Valuable, yes, but limited to what was ingested. Then came the breakthrough, and I'll quote again from the audio. There is a very important protein in the body called NRF2. It's a protein that turns on endogenous, not the exogenous from the outside, but the endogenous from the inside antioxidant system. And when that system is activated, it gives you some of the greatest potential. It goes on to say, Neutralite has come up with the right combinations to switch on this system at some of its highest levels. That gives us the greatest protection through antioxidant activity, anti-inflammatory effects, and immune boosting, unquote. So this is where phase 4 differs from phase 3. Instead of relying mostly on external or exogenous antioxidants, the new formulation focuses on activating endogenous defenses, which is your body's own internal antioxidant and anti-inflammatory machinery, triggered by NRF2. So what is what exactly is NRF2? Think of NRF2 as a master control panel for your body's cellular defenses. Under normal conditions, it stays switched off, held in check by another protein called KEAP1. But when the body faces stress from toxins, pollutants, poor diet, or even natural metabolic processes, NRF2 is released. It moves into the nucleus of the cell and it binds to specific DNA regions called antioxidant response elements, or AREs. This binding is like flipping dozens of switches all at once. Genes are activated that do the following. One, they produce glutathione, your body's most powerful internal antioxidant. Secondly, they ramp up detoxification enzymes, helping your liver neutralize and remove toxins. Thirdly, it reduces inflammatory signaling, kind of calming the silent fires that drive chronic disease. And lastly, it supports my favorite, mitochondrial function, protecting the very engines of your energy production. If this feels abstract, let's take a look at it, kind of describe it using a few metaphors. Here's one metaphor: firefighters versus sprinkler system. Exogenous antioxidants are like calling in outside firefighters. They help, but only when they arrive. NRF2, by contrast, activates your built-in sprinkler system, which is already in every room of the building and ready to respond instantly. Here's another metaphor for you tech people. Think of it like a software update. Think of NRF2 as updating your computer's operating system. It's not just adding a new app that would be like taking vitamin C or vitamin E, valuable but exogenous. It's upgrading the whole system so it can run faster, stronger, and more securely. Kind of the last metaphor, think of like an army commander. NRF2 doesn't fight the battle itself. It issues the commands, mobilizing hundreds of antioxidant and anti-inflammatory troops already stationed throughout your body. So why does this matter for HealthPoint? For those of us in HealthPoint, this science reinforces why Nutrilite products are the nutritional bedrock of what we do. Yes, we help people lose weight, stabilize blood sugar, and improve metabolic health through the HealthPoint system. But the products we recommend are not just fillers or multivitamins. They are cutting-edge formulations with decades of science behind them. We already know the Nutrilite story, the world's largest nutritional supplement company, over 6,000 acres of certified organic farmland, and a track record of never having a recall. Now we can add this. Over 10 years of development time went into moving from phase 3 to phase 4 of XX, resulting in a formulation that doesn't just add antioxidants from the outside, but flips the NRF2 switch, activating the body's internal system of protection, that is. So when we talk to clients or prospective clients, we can offer many reasons why Nutrilite products are unmatched. Their organic farming, their purity, their quality controls, but the deeper story is that Nutrilite sits at the intersection of nature and science, giving us tools that don't just supplement the body, but activate it. That's what Dr. Stu Menn wanted us to see in Orange Dot audio number 20. And that's why when we help clients improve metabolic health through HealthPoint, often beginning with weight loss, we can be confident that we're also fueling their cells with the absolute best of the best. Okay, that is NRF2. Tried to dial down too much of the science and nerdiness that is inherent in that topic. Hopefully it was of value. And again, this is just coming from Orange Dot number 20. So those that are engaged in the HealthPoint app, just go to your daily messages, go to Orange Dot number 20, The Best of Nature, The Best of Science by Dr. Stu Menn, and you'll hear him speak on on this topic that I kind of wanted to unpack. So, all right, I know we've got a lot of docket items, but if anybody has any questions, commentary on that,
So I'm going to de-nerd it by just one thought, and that is we all have computers and we have a mother load or the main frame. And what Nutrilite, what I'm understanding here, Double X in particular, he's talking about repairs and keeps the mother frame, the mother load working beautifully, where other supplements that work exogenously, I don't know if that's a word, are like apps that you can put on to do this or that or the other thing. Am I
yeah,
understanding that correctly?
you are absolutely understanding it correctly. That's really well said, for sure. Yeah, yeah, it's it's so amazing. And Dr. Meng goes through some areas on this redevelopment from phase 3 to phase 4 that you can just pick up on and listen to. But when they're doing this, they have to thread the needle. For example, Stu Mann talked about, they have to not only pull this off, but they have to pull it off in a way that's palatable, right? Okay. So you're going to have the best, supplement that, switches on the NRF2. And if you got to choke it down, it's not going to work really well. And then he talks about all the markets, right? This is a worldwide company. So is this going to be not only palatable, but also be able to, I'm sure, like from a regulatory standpoint and so forth, be able to be into markets like Indonesia and other places around the globe. So he kind of talks about that's why it took, part of the reason why it took 10 years. This was not just simply, oh, here's some plant concentrates that we can put in combination and trigger this master switch inside the body. Yes, that was the core central effort, but there's a lot of other considerations that have to be pulled into play, and he chats about those a little bit in that audio. But yeah, Carol, you've got it absolutely perfectly described. So,
well, I think sometimes people, for me, a picture helps in my mind. That's because I'm a right brain. Other people assimilate in a different way. But when I was listening to it, it just made me think that our internal system is where it all is. And when we can get that operating at full speed ahead and accepting, then all the external forces, things that we do, will work so much better because the internal is operating properly. If our internal is broken down, you can put all the external you want in there, and it's only going to work to a point. And that's why I always listen to people when they say, oh, I take vitamins. I take a D and I take an A and I take a this and I take a that. And I'm thinking, all those little lonely soldiers out there fighting the battle all by themselves. Nobody's communicating with each other. They don't know what they're supposed to do. They're just in there on the battleground, kind of fighting by themselves. And what this does is those little soldiers enter in, and they've got the army captain, sergeant, whatever, telling them exactly what to do, where to go, what to do as a team. And there we go, community, team, how to function those so they operate along with everything else that they're not taking, but that the body is producing internally.
yeah, yeah. Love that. You made me think of, maybe the next person that, where I hear that commentary and when I hear that commentary from people that I'm, particularly it's in the context of talking with them about health point. So it's a very favorable commentary. I like that people are already taking supplement. It's you're not trying to move a stopped train on the tracks. It's a train that's already moving, and it's just, talking with them about other options. But, a little one-liner on, if somebody is defensive about their brand or whatever, is just, so I'm curious, does that formulation trigger NRF2? That will probably, first of all, probably their eyeballs will probably glaze over. But secondly, it's
They'll
going to
stop
be
them
kind
in
of
their tracks.
yeah, be a little bit of a showstopper, I think, for that. And after they, spitter and sputter on that, then we can, I don't know, send them this YouTube recording, I guess. I don't know, but no, it's one of the other things that I wanted to comment on, because I've done some more research on this that goes beyond this narrative piece. And to be clear, on none of any of these topics I'm an expert on it, and certainly when I kind of veer off into stuff that I haven't researched on. But one of the things that was kind of suggested is, and it made me think of an episode we did, I don't know, probably a year ago, maybe some of you remember, it was called the George Burns effect. We all think of George Burns, right? That people that are aware of him, if people are young, they might not know who this guy is, but the classic image of George Burns with his tortoiseshell glasses and smoking a big stogie, and usually like a stiff drink in his hand, and he's 173 years old, and looking pretty svelte, and everybody goes to that and says, well, gee, I'm just going to keep eating donuts and fruitcake because look at George Burns, it was fine with him. All right, so that's another discussion for that. But what was suggested is that there are people that we all know that we're born with our genes, and then there's an expression of the gene. And so what was suggested is with people like George Burns, they may have probably a genetic variant, a genetic SNP, where this NRF2 factor is really uncorked, really dialed in. When you think of how this NRF2 works, where literally all these defense mechanisms, this antioxidant. So in his case, he smokes a big stogie, he's inhaling all of this, but his body is just like bam, 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 just counteracting that toxin that's coming in. He's having his stiff drink, very routinely, and again, the enzymes that clear the liver are really, really, really strong. So, but for the rest of us non-George Burns people, that, being able to take a supplement like this fourth formulation of double X to help switch on that master switch to activate that NRF2, maybe to a degree like a George Burns, so that when we're getting these, pollution and other things, we're doing the best things that we can, but, if we're outside and we're getting our power walk in, we might be getting a bunch of, car fumes that we're inhaling, okay? So it's all around us. So here is an understanding of how that NRF2 works. So anyhow, I just wanted to comment on that George Burns effect. That was a Voices of Health point that we did maybe about a year ago or so. All right. Well, we can always circle back to more nerdiness on NRF2, but let's keep the docket rolling on. And we've got Carol, Steve, and Sharon. Anybody in particular want to go first? Carol, that sounds like you.
Oh, me? Okay. All right.
Or actually, if you want to pause a bit, I know you're walking. Steve, are you ready?
Sure am. Yeah.
All right, Steve, you're up.
Nope. All righty. Well, good morning, everyone. I hope you're doing well and enjoying whatever kind of weather you're in, regardless where you are. I did a little digging in. A neighbor and I had been talking. He was a science teacher and very brilliant guy, and we were talking about resistant starch, and so I did a little more digging on it because I thought, this is interesting, and I don't know how many of the folks that are listening are aware resistant starch, or what the heck it is. So first of all, it is a starch. And it's one of the things that it really can be good for weight loss and controlling glucose. And if you haven't heard about it, well, now you're going to. And I'm not, let's put this in perspective. I'm not saying everybody start doing this for health point. I guess what I'm saying is what you find out from this might take away a little of the guilt if you kind of slip and have something that you shouldn't have, or at least you're thinking you shouldn't have, because it depends on the form that it is in. All right, so what do I mean by that? Let's start with what the definition of resistant starch is. So it's a carbohydrate that resists digestion in the small intestine, and what it does, it ferments in the large intestine. And as the fibers ferment, they act as a prebiotic, and they feed the good bacteria in the gut. So there are a few different types of resistant starch, and they're classified by their structure or their source. So there's more than one type of resistant starch that can be present in a single food. Of course, the benefits are, when the starches are digested, typically they break down into glucose, but because resistant starch is not digested in the small intestine, it isn't raising the glucose. The gut health can be improved as fermentation in the large intestines makes more good bacteria and less bad bacteria in the gut. So healthy gut bacteria can actually improve glycemic control. Some of the other benefits of resistant starch include increased feeling of fullness, which is, good, so somebody isn't eating more. The treatment and prevention of constipation. Fiber obviously is always good. There's a decrease in cholesterol and a lower risk of colon cancer because of that. And, since resistant starch becomes a fiber. And resistant starch is fermented slowly, so it will, it causes less gas than other fibers. Now, how do you get it? Where do you find it? What's the deal with that? Some foods have a good amount in it. For example, plantains and green bananas have a good amount of resistant starch. As a banana ripens, the starch changes to regular starch. And of course, we know that a banana is, a high glycemic thing. That's why we only are allowed to eat, part of a small banana in health point. We have beans and peas and lentils that have resistant starch, but white beans and lentils are the highest in resistant starch. And then we have whole grains, including oats and barley, and then cooked. Now, this is interesting. Cooked and cooled rice and cooled pasta. So those two foods, rice and pasta, when they're cooked and then put in the refrigerator, it changes the molecular structure in some form. And that becomes, when you eat it, if you eat it cold, it's resistant starch. Now, I don't know how many people enjoy cold noodles, but they also say, the research I did that also says that it can be reheated without really losing much of the effect of the resistant starch. So how to add it, to your diet? Well, like I was saying, try cooking rice, potatoes, beans, and pasta a day in advance, and then put it in the refrigerator overnight. And on that, they say it's okay to reheat the starch before eating, because reheating doesn't decrease the amount of resistant starch in those things. In place of cooked oatmeal, try uncooked oats soaked in yogurt, milk, or non-dairy milk, and then refrigerate overnight. And I guess a lot of people call that overnight oats. Adding lentils into salad or soup is a good idea to increase the resistant starch factor. And then as a partial flour replacement, try green banana flour. I'm not real familiar with that. Maybe some of you are. Plantain flour, cassava flour, or potato starch. So resistant starch will be lost when the baking or the cooking, or when you're baking or cooking with those flours. And then you can also supplement with a small amount, like 1 or 2 teaspoons sprinkled on your food. And one of the things, now keep in mind, it turns to a fiber. So it's they talk about when you're increasing fiber intake, go slowly and drink plenty of water to reduce the GI side effects. You know, you don't want to be doing a meeting and turn around and find out you've cleared the room. My wife is laughing in the background here. So just remember that all types of fiber have health benefits. So eat a variety of fiber containing foods. But kind of to recap a little bit, the amount of resistant starch in a food can vary depending on the factors, such as cooking time and the temperature. Some processed foods may contain added resistant starch. And, it's never bad to, of course, consult with a healthcare professional if you have any concerns about consuming resistant starch. But I thought that was really interesting. And this came, the information I was working with came from Johns Hopkins. And Johns Hopkins is, kind of noted in the medical world. So it's a non-digestible carbohydrate that acts as fiber. And it can be found naturally in some foods and can be produced when you cooled some of the other foods. And, it helps promote blood sugar control, promotes gut health, reduces appetite, reduces the risk of colon cancer to some effect, apparently. So anyhow, just a little bit of information dealing with things that, we really don't want to be eating a lot of on Health Point. Unless, of course, it's changed to resistant starch, and then that may not have the negative effect on our weight management like we might have thought. But anyhow, just a little bit of info that I thought may be helpful for folks. Over to you, Eric.
Yeah. Wow. What that topic, when we were using the title of resistant starch, I didn't really recognize it. As you began to unpack that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so great, because this has come up a fair amount with people that I've worked with, and you've helped me understand it more completely here. So one of the things that I was curious on as you were going through, and I did a quick look on it, because I was one of the things I was curious on is this part that you're talking about. You kind of keyed in and spent a bit of time on, Steve, and that is the cooling down process. When I would hear about that, I was aware of it. I've done some things like that before, but I wasn't aware, like, what the heck does that matter? Why does cooking some rice or something like that and then letting it cool down, why does that matter? And you hit on it, and I'll just kind of double click on that. And here's what it is. It says when starch is cooked, it gets gelatinous. I guess the word is gelatinizes. Yeah, gelatinizes. Yeah. The starch granules swell and become easier for digestive enzymes to break down. So that easiness, it raises the blood sugar quickly, right? But when those foods are cooled, some of the starch molecules actually recrystallize into a tighter structure. And then this new form resists digestion in the small intestine, which is what you were talking about, Steve, because it goes into the large intestine. So this new form resists digestion in the small intestine and behaves like resistant starch, reaching the colon, where it feeds gut bacteria instead of spiking blood sugar. So thank you. That, like I said, has come up quite a bit, actually. And, the other thing that it notes, and I know you note for sure, Steve, knowing your world, is, well, you already alluded to it, check with, doctor, certainly if you're being coached, check with your coach on this, but also in the notes here, I'm saying, on a practical base, particularly if you're looking to be 50 to 100 net carbs per day, that's what I fed into the system here and asked about it. And it said, it's definitely going to be a portion control thing. So it kind of is consistent with, when I'm working with people and they're like, you mean I can't eat such and such a food? I don't know. I'll just pick a food and just say, a jelly donut. I'm like, no, you can have jelly donuts. You can have jelly donut on Health Point, and And I say, like, if it's a size of like a baby, BB, you can have that size. It's all about portion control, but you can have it. You can have a Snickers bar. Just make it about the size of an ant, and man, enjoy that little ant-sized Snicker bar. But yeah, you can have it. It's all about part of it. So of course, it's about portion control. And so, I can see if somebody is experimenting with this due to dietary needs, or just sometimes it's cultural things. You're working with people in different cultures. And I'm curious, as we went around last week, especially, and you're seeing, whether it's Southeast Asia or all the different places that were on that walk and talk, these are different cultures, different food habits. And I was curious, what are they doing, if anything, in terms of making it fit within their culture and still getting that, consistent weight loss each week by keeping their blood sugar regulated. So really huge topic here, Steve. Anybody else, comments, questions for Steve?
I have a question for Steve, because that's very, very interesting. You were talking about the cassava flour, and there is, because Hank and I are on lifetime maintenance, we like hummus, but we're not bread eaters. So we like to get something that is a healthy chip or cracker that we can eat without, your seed oils and stuff if possible. And there's a chip out there called siete, and it's made with cassava flour. And I had never heard of it before, but apparently it's a staple in a lot of the Hispanic communities. And so that was very interesting that you talked about that. Again, that's not necessarily something you want to promote to your person on weight loss, because you're trying to get them away from that as a daily habit while they're in their active weight loss. But certainly an option later on as people move into lifetime maintenance and are expanding their food chain. We want to know things that are better to select than other things. And so that was interesting you mentioned about that. The question that I have is, so interesting you mentioned about lentils. Hank and I are big bean eaters, white chili and lentil soup and what have you. And what we do is I make a big pot of it in bone broth with leeks and garlic and cabbage and different things like that, and chicken. And then we blend it and we put it in the freezer, because it's really nice when you don't want to cook. And it's very, very satiating for lifetime maintenance. But am I hearing that if I cook that, put it in the freezer, bring it back out, and then if I warm it up, does that still remain in effect if I warm it up?
Yeah. The information I've come across said that you can do some reheating. There was one. What was the one thing? I can't think of it right this minute. I'll look and see. There was one thing that it said it might lose a little bit of the resistant starch, but oh, here we go. Let's see. All right, talking about, green banana, plantain, cassava flour, potato starch. Resistant starch will be lost when baking or cooking with these flours, but that's prior, that's beforehand. There was something that said that it would lose a little bit. Most of the time, it's not a problem. It said that things can be reheated and not a problem.
Okay. I don't want to take up too much time. I just wondered if if that was the case. And again, we're on lifetime maintenance, but it's an extremely healthy dish, and one that's why we go to it as an option. But obviously lentils, if you can eat lentils or even white bean, I think you mentioned white beans, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Those are, that's what I make my chicken chili, white chili out of. So there's really nothing in there, especially on lifetime maintenance, that wouldn't be something that would really be easy to maintain your weight.
Yeah, absolutely. The
Yeah.
white beans and lentils are the highest in resistant starch.
Are they? Okay, and that's exactly what I use too. Oh, great. That is very interesting. Thank you very much for that.
No, you're welcome.
Yeah, great stuff. Carol, you thinking pictures, and I think a lot of us do. And for those of us that are in snow country, and I know Hank and Carol, you used to be in Michigan, those of us are familiar with snow. We're talking about this. Why does it work when it's cooled down? Something came to my mind is if you have a nice fluffy new snow, it's really nice and powdery. But if you ever disturb that snow, like with a shovel and then let it sit for a day, it crystallizes like a block of ice. Some of us have had that experience, or like if a snow slides off of a roof and lands, again, it's nice fluffy snow when it slides off, but when it impacts and it changes. And so that to me gives that visual of why, what's happening in this cooked rice or cooked oats that cool down, that again, it's kind of gelatinous at first. It's kind of like the white fluffy snow, powdery snow. But when it's cooked or disturbed like that and then cooled down, it changes, the crystals change, just like the snow changes from a pile of fluffy snow to something that's almost like a block of ice. So kind of a key visual for me. And I'll tell you just, candidly, and Steve, I really, really thank you for this. My key takeaway from your segment is that cold pizza and cold beer is on the Health Point program, according to Steve. You've heard it here
say
first.
Much about beer here.
Yeah. Well, the hops. Let's go on the hops thing.
But I did find, I know what I was looking for. It talked about that the rice and the beans and the oats and the pasta can be cooked and then cooled, and heating does not take away the resistance. It doesn't decrease the amount of resistant starch. So rice, potatoes, beans, and pasta. Cool it down and then heat it up, and you got a whole different animal.
That is very exciting. And for long-term maintenance people that like to have maybe a little treat without getting decadent, because I really lost my taste for decadent stuff anyway. I seriously have. I mean, I know that might sound weird to many people, but it just does not have a take for me anymore. But I found these little cookies in Publix, and they're probably in other stores too. And I think they're called Alyssa, and they're just nothing but solid fiber goodness. There's a little bit of dried fruit in there, some oats, and I store them in the refrigerator. And then at night, if I want a tea and I want a little treat, because I think one of the things, especially if you're on long-term maintenance, is you do not want to feel like you've got the rest of your life where you can never have a treat. You just change your mindset on what a treat is to you. And so I've never felt denied, not that I've never had another kind of treat too, but I honestly just don't have a drive for it anymore. But these little cookies are so dense and so low in calories and so high in fiber, so low in carbohydrates, that they're just such a nice, healthy addition. And you just feel as you're eating them that you are feeding your gut big time, just big time. And I think sometimes as we move along in Health Point, especially for those that have lost a lot of weight over a long period of time, and they're changing their mental mindset, those types of things become really evident as you're eating, mentally evident. And we used the word clean tongue before, and that's what happens. Seriously, that's what happens over the years. But your mindset too, you're clearing your mind of attitudes that you had. And so these new things that you interject, and there's more and more of them coming out in the marketplace because people are demanding them. And the more you mentally focus in on that and change that mindset, your future lifetime maintenance is really, really fun and very enlightening.
Hey, Carol,
Yes.
can you say the name of those little cookies again?
I think they're called Alyssa, but what I'll do is I'll put the picture of them with a disclaimer on the Health Point Eats.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm walking now, so but
Okay.
somehow I think it was called Alyssa, but I'll put the back part too, because honestly,
Okay.
I've read and reread, and I have not found anything detrimental. I mean, I wouldn't tell people eat that as a snack during weight loss necessarily, although I'm not sure now, given what Steve was saying, but I probably wouldn't do that at this point, but I would definitely for long-term maintenance. I mean, if you like a little happiness with a cup of tea before you go to bed or in the middle of the, in the middle of the evening or whatever, I mean, it is nice. It's just a nice little treat.
Okay, thanks.
Excellent. And for those that might be curious or not familiar with, Carol just mentioned Health Point Eats. That is for those that are on WhatsApp channel, we have a couple of groups on WhatsApp. One's called Health Point Eats. Another one's called the Audios. And it's just where we'll share, in the case of Health Point Eats, maybe some recipes or ideas or pictures of food, or just kind of it's focused on that. And Carol, I think you had the idea of creating that Health Point Eats WhatsApp group, which has been really, really great. But certainly check with your coach, if you're in business, with your coach, with your mentor, in terms of joining any kind of thing like that. But that's what Carol is referencing there on the Health Point Eats. Is we have some fun on there. We have some fun food pictures coming through on that. That's kind of cool.
Emily's beautiful salads.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Oh, they're a work of art.
I have to it's painful to have to stop and take a picture of that and send it over before just digging into that. It's so delicious. She makes a wonderful Health Point salad for sure. Well, gosh, Sharon Webb, if you are available, we'd love to hear you unmute and dive into your docket item of You Are the Answer, is what I hear.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Eric. Boy, what a great day. So interesting. So many things. Listen, I just wanted to reference something I read this last week that just reminded me about a weight loss show that was on years and years and years ago. But for people who lost the most weight, they would win something. But really, they had to live on like 1,000 calories a day or less. They had to be able to exercise up to 6 hours a day. And this would be close to a year. Then the winner, of course, was recognized, etc. But the other people were just left to, there was no plan on how for them to transition back into normal life again. And so there was no explanation from their trainers about how to keep their weight off or what they needed to do. And so we're kind of facing the same thing again now with the Ozempic type products available, that people potentially are going to lose a lot of weight. But what happens when they need an exit strategy? And so I think you are the answer. I love having this Health Point talk. Thank you, Hank and Carol, for providing this, and Eric for always hosting and putting it on Voices of Health Point on YouTube, and all of the people on here who do so much research. It's just an incredible help for me and for others that y'all have provided. I just want to say thank you, because there's never been a more needy time than right now for people, I believe, wanting to lose weight and not knowing what to do. So you are the answer, and I just want to thank each of you. Thanks.
I love
Thank you, Sharon, for joining in.
Yeah. We know it's early for us in the Eastern Standard Time. It's even earlier for you folks over there in the great state of Texas. So grateful that you guys are able to join in and participate. Yeah, you mentioned about people and the effects of the GLP, and what a great lead in on that with a TV show that was, it was all about drama and like quote unquote entertainment, I suppose, but really left these people in a lurch, no doubt, with not understanding, how do they maintain this for life? And then, paralleling that with what many people are experiencing with these GLP-1 agonist drugs and injections, which really hit the radar. I can vividly remember it in our Voices of Health Point where we were talking about, it seemed like every time you turned around, somebody was talking about these things. And I know, Carol, you were saying that, with the different investment advice and stock options and stuff like that. It was an incredibly hot stock, if you're buying into a company that is producing these types of things. So those two things was just really showing how prevalent this was hitting the society. And now here we are, 2 years later, and I'm starting to hear the things that you're talking about, Sharon, which is, and we kind of coined a term on that, just kind of a play on one of the brands, which is Ozempic. There's a lot of brands out there. Ozempic is one, but we called it Ozempic anxiety. And that is, in fact, I have two folks that I'm helping. They're coaching them through HealthPoint that are on GLP-1s. They came to me with that, and good for them that they understood and were seeking help for, they didn't name it that, the Ozempic anxiety. The Ozempic anxiety is, one of them experienced it directly. His situation was that initially his GLP was covered by insurance due to his BMI and other markers. So that was covered by insurance. The cruel irony is that as he lost weight, and he did lose weight with it, right? You're just basically going on a starvation. You're really deficit. He lost weight, but then it changes your BMI numbers, when you're in the doctor's office and step on the scales and get your measurements. And guess what happens to, in his case, his insurance coverage? It's gone. And so now he's got to pay out of pocket a lot of money. And so there is this, and he just wants to be off of it. And so he is very successfully doing HealthPoint and working with his physician to titrate, he's already lowered the dosages on his GLP-1s, and he'll be off them in no time. And the other individual, very, very similar thing. He had the sense and awareness that when he got on this, he had to do everything he could to keep his protein up and his lean muscle fiber up, which is where a lot of people suffer. But he wants to be off of it, period. And he understands, the science of the HealthPoint system and is really engaging. So we are that answer, Sharon, and thank you for highlighting it, that we are the HealthPoint is an answer for people that are looking for solutions in general, but specifically if they're considering a GLP or if they're on a GLP and they're looking for that off ramp, we can really come alongside them and help them for sure.
Hey, Eric. Oh, I'm sorry, Sharon. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to thank everybody for all y'all are doing. It's just encouraging to really the whole nation. And so I really believe that we are the answer. And certainly you guys are just leading the way on that. So I just wanted to thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Sharon.
And what I was just going to say, my nephew is on one of those drugs, and we were talking to him, and he was talking about his muscle fatigue, and so I couldn't talk him out of that, but Steve talked to him about muscle multiplier, and so he has been a repeat customer on the muscle multiplier. And so if somebody has to go that way and they are in that mode, muscle multiplier might be a really important thing to promote to them while they're on it, and hopefully get them off, of course. But our next step is to try to get him into this community and walk and talk. But he's on muscle multiplier, at least that's what I'm saying.
Pamela, I think you brought out a really good point that we need to be thinking about, because my first concern was to get them off And I think Eric brought it out, and we kind of fleshed that out a while back. Rather than trying to get them off, especially if they're a happy camper. If they're not a happy camper, then obviously it's full steam ahead. If they are a happy camper and they love what they're doing with their Ozempic or whatever they're on, then to help them to understand that Health Point is a program that can work along with it so that they don't have the ill effects of not eating properly. They are learning while they're losing. So for long-term happiness. And so initially what you're kind of coming in, if a person's mindset is I'm just loving Ozempic, is hey, great. Glad you're doing something about your weight. We've got a program that we can work right along with it where you'll learn so that someday when you get off Ozempic, you'll be able to maintain that weight because you've already learned a healthy lifestyle. So sometimes they're more receptive that way too, initially.
Yeah. Yeah. Great point. Very, very true. I like how you frame that. If are they a happy camper? If they are,
yeah.
that's one situation. But if they're not, then that's another situation. But to be ready and available to work with either of their mindsets is the key. So awesome. Well, Carol, we are spun around on the docket item, and we're coming up on soon to wrap up, and maybe it would be great because I know you got some forward-thinking topic or a forward-thinking topic in this upcoming schedule that was on your docket item. So would love to hear more.
Okay, well, I'm not going to go into a lot because we don't have a lot of time right now, but Hank and I have been working with some medical people in varying degrees on the Health Point program. And in sitting down, we had one particular gentleman sitting down with him, and one of the things he made some kind of a snide remark. But the bottom line was you can tell a story, but we need clinical data. It was the bottom line. He used some kind of a thing that would have been used with another doctor, and he knew doggone well I wasn't understanding what he said. So I asked him, and he said, well, you can tell me a story, but we need clinical data. Out of 1,000 people, blah, 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 blah. And I didn't think about it at the time. See, we're all always learning. But later on, I thought, okay, when that comes up again, and it will, if you're dealing with medical people, they will ask you for some form of data, or do you have numbers or whatever. That's just a natural thing for them to do. And I think a great response for us is, first of all, we're not a medical program, so we do not gather clinical data. We are a healthy lifestyle program that anybody can follow that will add years of health to their life. We don't work with drugs. We work with healthy habits. And so therefore, what our clinical data is stories. And we have thousands and thousands and thousands of stories around the world. If you want stories, we can give you stories. But they'll all be similar. They'll all lead to the same thing. I went on Health Point. I created healthy habits. I lost this many kilos, which, by the way, if you don't know what a kilo is, I just multiply it times 2. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's pretty close. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I kind of translate in my own brain. And so we work with actual healthy stories. So tying in with that, one of the things we're going to cover on Tuesday night on our Zampa Zoom, so for those of you that are plugged into that, is where do you find people and how do you find people to get into conversations like this? And we're just going to give some scenarios. So if you'd like to, if you are in the mode of paying it forward, some of you are maybe very new in the program and you're just wanting to lose weight, and that's great. For those of you that are more business builders and want to see how can I reach out to more people, I think Tuesday night would be helpful. But one of the things that we're starting is our new session which will start on September 22nd. And so we have to start thinking about this now because it takes time to prepare a person, get them mentally prepared, get their orders in, get their app set up, and all those types of things. So we have a couple of weeks here now to it's really, really important time if you want to start on that particular week. One of the things I sent out early this morning was an invite, and I think Eric, had originally originated from you, so I'm going to give you all the credit for it. Maybe you and AI, I don't know. But anyway, it's very good, and we've used it before, and Laurel updated it, and I sent it out. I don't think this necessarily a thing you want to send out and say, hey, you want to learn about our program, because it's just a data dump. It's 2 pages solid of what our Health Point program is all about. But I do think that it is something that, especially if you're a newbie or you're a person that's still a little bit shy about interesting people and having the responsibility of putting them on, that is a great go-to source that you can literally, if you're doing a FaceTime with them, or even if you're sitting in front of them with a coffee, you can literally go through the verbiage point by point with them, still talking to them. And it is a very good description of what we are, what we do, and how we support you. And so I have to say, Eric, I'll give you the credit for it because I'm pretty sure you were the one that started it. It's very, very good. And so use that as a tool. The other thing is, as we talk to these doctors, remember, we do have stories. And even though we want to know the ins and outs of everything, do you know what really sells the Health Point program bottom line and gives the person a courage to say, maybe I can do this. I've done every other program. Maybe I can do this, is a story. And it's not a story by Eric or Sharon or myself, or probably a number of you that have spoken. It's a story of somebody that's in the process. And I think of so many people. I think of Debbie Llewellyn and her story, and Laurel, and Linda, who told her story so beautifully. And honestly, that was such a great session, that episode that was 2 weeks ago. I sent that out to everybody. Quite honestly, guys, that's a tool. That is a tool, because you had Eric on their opening, you had Erica from her background, and she introduced her client, Linda, and Linda pleaded with people. It was just so fresh and beautiful that that is a tool. That's a tool to use with somebody after you've talked to them and say, hey, this is what we support you with. This is a typical Monday night lean team. And then you can send them that, and you're not trying to tell them. The last thing your friend wants you to do is tell them how they're going to lose weight, because that's a turnoff to most people if their friend tells them that. What you do is you tell other people's stories. That's always the most effective. It's the outer town expert with a briefcase. You talk about everybody else's stories, and hey, I this person and that person, and this is what they did. So you've got that is a beautiful tool. You've got last Saturday night, our little was supposed to be 15 minutes. I don't know how long it lasted, but anyway, the Zoom, where we had 6 or 7 different members of our lean team, you that are on the program right now. Beautiful stories, just homegrown down stories. We heard from Romania and Bulgaria and Philippines and everything, but people want to know in their own backyard, is this working? And they want to know by somebody that they're going to see on Monday night on a lean team, or Saturday morning on a walk and talk. And they're going to hear the real stories. And so, as wonderful as that is, and I think that tool, I've been really stressing with Network 21 to make that a tool, that walk and talk, make that a tool, because I think that shows the vastness of Health Point. Sorry, somebody's starting their car up. So it shows the vastness of Health Point. But then I think people still want to know what's going on in my own backyard, that I can organically grow with a team that's there to support me every morning. And so I think that's the power of that. So anyway, the other thing I want you to all be thinking about, and this takes time, we want to create a culture. So in creating a culture, what we want to start with is getting that culture into our own mind and then starting to work on fleshing it out in our own situations. And that is, we can call it U+2, we can call it starting Health Point as easy as 1, 2, 3, building a coaching business as easy as 1, 2, 3. One would be you go on it. The other would be, then the second one would be you bring somebody on and maybe their spouse and a friend goes on with it. Now you've got U+2, or even 3 if it's just you going on it and you have a friend going on it, the friend might have a friend. So all you're thinking of is setting up these little mini lean teams of U+2 or 3 in a little mini lean team. And those mini lean teams lead into gradually, everybody won't, but gradually they lean into fattening out and filling out our walk and talks on Saturday mornings and our Monday night community. And then the app with all of the intellectual properties along with your coach is what supports you. And I think that is a really nice package that people can get their arms around. So that's what I wanted to say, Eric, and we're going to be talking more and more about this. I know you and I are going to be masterminding on this more and more, and that's my goal for this year, is to really flesh this out, put some meat on the bones, and let's make this thing happen way past the community that we have right now.
Love that. What a battle cry. What a call to action. Wrapping up today's Voices of Health Point session. Thank you so much, Carol. That was really great. It helped us frame the simplicity of this, the value of this. I love that term, the vastness of this. Certainly we were all exposed to that in last Saturday's global walk and talk. But at the same time, we all missed our Saturday, our get together here. We appreciated last Saturdays, but we particularly in the preamble, we're all laughing and giggling about how we missed it. David brought it up right out of the gate. He's like, "I missed you, everyone," and we appreciate those global, but we really, really love this. So, well, we are wrapping up our 1 hour Saturday morning, and so. Thank you, everyone. Everyone that contributed, of course, a long laundry list here. We are coming out firing into our reboot into after last week. And thank you so much, everyone. We'll look forward to the upcoming Monday night that Carol talked about. For those that want to participate, that's from 8 p.m. to 8:30. You have to show up sharp. My assistant, Beth, will not let you in. The doors open at 8 p.m. She will not let you in if you are at 8:06. It's 8 to 8:05, and that's to respect the educational components that Carol has lined up for that. That's Monday night. Carol's mentioned about the Tuesday night Zampa Zoom for those that want to participate in that. And then we've got next Saturday of Voices of Health Point, so 1 week from today. Till then, we'll see you then. See you same time, same place. Till then, bye-bye.
Bye. Take care, everybody.
Great weekend.
Bye-bye.